name's Rebecca, and today I am going to take you through the steps to get into Bhujapidasana, which is quite a difficult pose, but I think that if you take the correct steps in the correct order and pay attention to the details, it's not actually as hard as it looks. It's a really cool looking pose. It's a hand balancing pose, and yet it's a pose that I see even a lot of advanced yogis struggling with. But I think that it can be accessible to any practitioner, and we are going to work the steps towards getting there. So the first thing I do before I put any weight on my hands or wrists is to warm up my wrists. I already have a wrist injury. It sucks. You don't want a wrist injury, and I don't want mine to get any worse. So we're going to come into a tabletop position, and fingers are spread wide, pressing into the mat. Base of the knuckles are pressing into the mat, and then it's pretty light in the wrist area. And then I bring my shoulders directly over my palms, so just a little bit past my wrists. And here I like to do a few shoulder rotations so that the inside or eye of my elbow rotates back and then forward, back and then forward. And then I take my hands facing out away from each other, and I just do some gentle circles in one direction and in the other direction. Still keeping the weight in the fingertips and the base of the knuckles, not pressing hard into the base of the wrist. And you can do a few of those rotations here as well. That's a pretty good stretch. I can feel that my right side is much tighter than my left because of my wrist injury. And then you can take your fingers straight back towards your knees, still spreading them wide. If this is really difficult for you, walk your knees in as close as you can, and that will make it less intense. If this is easy for you, you can walk your knees a little farther out and maybe start to sit back a little bit. But you don't want the base of your palm to start peeling off the mat. I'm going to keep it down and get a nice stretch here. I just do a few gentle pulses. And then slowly peel it off. Shake my wrists out a little bit. And then I do palmar flexion, which is where the back of my hand is on the mat. My fingers are facing towards my knees. And again, here, if this is really painful for you, the closer in you walk your knees, the less painful and stressful it's going to be. If this is not so bad, you can start to walk your knees out. Some people can even do this in a plank position. I'm not one of those people. Anyway, once I'm here, I really like to do those shoulder rotations. It really helps me warm up my whole shoulder, elbow, and wrist. And I can really feel it. And when you're done with that, peel your hands off, shake them out, and then tap each finger to your thumb, just to wake up those finger pads, and roll them out a little bit. And lastly, I like to do a couple of flashlights where you're squeezing in as tight as you can and then flashing out. Flicking your fingers out. Okay, so traditionally in like the Ashtanga Yoga primary series, Bhujapidasana comes after quite a number of forward folds, which really stretch out your hamstrings, the back of your calves, your hips, and your low back. So it's definitely important to start working on hamstring flexibility and loosening up your back if you want to get to Bhujapidasana. So what I like to do is just start in a simple forward fold. And in order to get my pelvis tipping in the right direction, I actually kind of pull the flesh out from under my butt, out from under my sit bones. And that gets my pelvis tipping this way rather than hunching back this way. And then here, I just raise my arms overhead. Inhale and exhale, fold forward, reaching for the outside edges of my feet. And I don't want to be rolling over, hunching over here. I want to keep my back as flat and straight as possible. And then as I inhale, I'm actually going to bring my chest forward and make my back even flatter. And then as I exhale, I'll start to fold more deeply, and eventually maybe my head comes down to my shins. Now the way that I'm doing this, first of all, is I practice a lot. Second of all, I am folding right over the crease of my hips. I'm pulling my belly in so I have room to get over my pelvis, and then I'm pulling back with my lats, bringing my chest forward and my back nice and flat. You don't necessarily have to have that deep of a forward fold to be able to do this pose, but it's good to work in that direction. All right, so I also like to warm up my forward fold in a straddle position. It hits some different muscles. It gets the inside of the thighs and different parts of the hamstrings and the glutes. So basically you come into a straddle position. Doesn't have to be crazy wide, whatever's comfortable for you. And then again, I do the thing where I pull my butt flesh out so that my pelvis is tipping forward. And then here, I just start to walk my hands forward, keeping my chest lifted and my back as straight as possible. Now, if I want to come a little deeper into this pose, instead of just rolling over, hunching over, and letting my head come to the floor, I reach again for the outside edges of my feet. And I pull back with my lats, pulling my back nice and straight, my chest forward, and I come down so that my chest actually starts to work towards the floor in a pancake pose. Again, this takes time, this takes practice. Pulling back pretty strong with my lats, reaching my chest forward, and I can feel a pretty deep stretch in my inner thighs here. Okay, so once I have my wrists, shoulders, hamstrings, low back stretched out pretty well, the next thing that's important about this pose that most people don't think about because it's a little counterintuitive and it's not common in many yoga poses, but that is internal rotation of the shoulders. So here is external rotation, here is internal. And here is where you get to actually chill and hunch over a little bit. You don't have to keep that straight back anymore. In order to get into Bhujapidasana, you actually do have to curl into a little bit of a ball. So bringing now your shoulders towards each other, spreading your scapula out wide. You can bring the back of your hands to the mat with your fingers facing out. And this is going to give you a really good stretch across the back of your scapula and a really good feel for what that deep internal shoulder rotation feels like. since you do have to be quite compressed for this pose, it is important that your core is strong and that you're able to pull up into a little ball. So whatever core exercises you do are fine, but you want to make sure that you're really pulling your belly button back towards your spine and compressing your thighs towards your chest. And maybe you're here, or maybe you're out here, but still belly button to spine, low back touching, and you can bring it up into a little ball. Keep it hollow. No arch in the low back. And these are just called tuxets. That might not be your preferred core exercise, but it's one that works pretty well. So traditionally, one would be able to jump straight into Bhujapidasana from downward dog. That's very difficult. It's not accessible for very many people. It's not accessible for me. I have to take my time and wiggle and work my way into this pose. So I do start in a downward dog and make sure I'm getting a nice long back stretch, hamstring stretch, calf stretch, pressing my shoulders towards my ears. And then from here, you can jump, step, or just kind of wiggle your way so that your feet come outside of your hands. And from here, we actually want to get our hands behind our heels, like this. So, to really get your thighs up high on your deltoids, what you want to do is that internal rotation of the shoulder, drop it as low as you can, and then replace the hand. Same thing on the other side. Internal rotation, drop the shoulder, replace it. And then here, we slowly start to sit back, and you're going to find that there's a nice little shelf for your thighs to rest on. So take it slow, and if you don't feel like you have enough arm or shoulder to press your thighs into, come back up and try to get a little deeper. Try to drop that shoulder all the way under your knee on both sides. Replace the hands, and again, slowly start to sit back, and as you lift your chest and look forward, your toes start to come off the ground. And the last step is to press your thighs into your shoulders and cross your right foot over your left. Okay, so here's what it looks like from the front. Feet come outside the hands, and then bend the knees, drop the shoulders, and bring the hands behind the heels. And then here you can kind of inch your feet a little closer together, and then we're going to go for that internal rotation of the shoulder, dropping it all the way under the knee on one side, and on the other side, maybe you can even grab your calf and press your shoulder under your knee, and then place your hands right behind your heels, and slowly start to come back, lifting your chest, looking forward, and then pressing your thighs together and crossing right foot over left. You do want to have a drishti here so you can keep your balance and try not to fall straight back on your butt. But it will happen. So here I am in fast motion, working my way into the full pose. And I know that with some practice, you can do it too. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck.